The first thing Jack ever said to me was, "Just so you know, I don't do gay shit. No hello. No handshake. Just that." Flat, unapologetic. While he stood in the doorway of the apartment I was about to move into, arms crossed like I'd already done something wrong. I remember blinking at him, one hand still on my suitcase handle, wondering if I'd misheard. I hadn't. I said, smart and eloquent as always, cool. That was how it started. Me, Ryan, freshly out, freshly dumped, and freshly desperate for affordable rent. Him, Jack, 6 foot something, broad shoulders, permanently scowling like the world had personally inconvenienced him. If I'd had literally any other option, I would have turned around right then. But rent in the city was insane, my lease was up, and the landlord had already approved me. So instead of walking away, I dragged my suitcase past him and into what would become the most emotionally confusing living situation of my life. Jack hated gays. Or at least that's what he wanted everyone, including me, to believe. The apartment itself was fine. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, old wood floors that creaked when you walked too fast. Jack had the bigger room, obviously. I got the smaller one with the window that faced a brick wall. Our first week together was tense. Jack wasn't loud about his opinions after that first comment, but he didn't need to be. It was in the way he went quiet when anything even remotely gay came up on TV. The way he'd scoff if a commercial showed 2 guys holding hands. The way he'd say things like, "I just don't get that lifestyle," while aggressively chopping vegetables like they'd personally offended him. To his credit, he wasn't cruel. Just closed off. Rigid. Like he'd built a fence in his head and was determined to guard it. I kept my distance, which was hard because Jack was impossible not to notice. He worked construction, early mornings, steel-toe boots by the door, forearms always dusted with something like drywall or dirt. He came home sweaty, hair damp, shirts clinging in ways that were deeply unfair to someone like me, who was very much trying not to notice. I told myself it didn't matter. I'd lived with straight guys before. This was no different, except it was, because Jack watched me, not in a creepy way, more like cautious, observant, like he was constantly measuring something he didn't want to understand. The first real crack happened over something stupid. Pizza. I came home late one night, dropped my bag by the door, and found Jack sitting on the couch with a box open on the coffee table. He glanced up. "There's extra," he said, jerking his chin toward the box. "If you want." I hesitated. "You sure?" "Yeah, I'm full." I grabbed a slice, sat on the opposite end of the couch, and we ate in silence while some dumb action movie played. At some point, I laughed, actually laughed, at a ridiculous explosion on screen. Jack snorted, then froze like he hadn't meant to. I looked over. "What?" He shook his head. "Nothing." But the tension shifted. Just a little. After that, the silence felt different. Less sharp. Less hostile. We started talking more. Small stuff. Work. Traffic. Complaining about the ancient washing machine that sounded like it was actively trying to die. He still didn't ask about my life. I didn't volunteer anything. Until one night, about a month in, when he caught sight of my phone screen. I was scrolling through messages, half distracted, when Jack walked by behind me. I didn't think anything of it until he stopped. "Is that your boyfriend?" The word boyfriend sounded foreign coming out of his mouth. I locked my phone and looked up at him. "Ex," I said. And yeah, for a second I thought he might say something shitty. Instead, he just stared at me. Not angry, not disgusted, confused. "Oh," he said. Then, quieter. "Right?" He walked away without another word. I didn't sleep much that night. After that, Jack grew distant again. Polite but guarded. Like he'd been reminded of something he didn't want in his space. I told myself not to care. But then came the night I overheard him on the phone. "I'm not gay," Jack snapped, voice low but sharp. "I don't care what you think. Drop it." There was a pause. I was frozen in my room, door cracked open. "No," he continued, jaw tight. He's not like that. He's not like that." I didn't know who he was talking to, but I knew who he meant. And that was the moment I realized something terrifying. Somehow, I had become the exception. After that phone call, things got weird. Not bad weird, just charged. Jack didn't avoid me exactly. If anything, he hovered more, standing in the kitchen doorway while I cooked, sitting at the same table instead of taking his food to his room, asking questions that weren't personal but weren't nothing either. "How long were you with him?" he asked one night, nodding at my phone without looking directly at me. "Almost 3 years," I said. Jack hummed. "That's a long time." "Yeah," I replied. "It was." He didn't say anything after that, but his jaw tightened like the information bothered him more than he expected. The strange thing was he never asked gay questions. He didn't want explanations or labels. He asked about emotions without meaning to. "Did it hurt? Do you still talk? Was it your idea or his?" And every time I answered honestly, something shifted in his expression, like pieces clicking into a picture he didn't want to be forming. One Friday night, Jack came home drunk. Not sloppy drunk, just loose enough that his guard had cracks in it. I was on the couch watching Netflix when he kicked his boots off harder than necessary and dropped onto the armchair. He smelled like beer and cold night air. "You ever get tired of explaining yourself?" he asked suddenly. I muted the TV. "Explaining what?" He shrugged, staring at the floor. "Who you are." I hesitated. "Sometimes." Jack let out a breathy laugh. "Yeah, figures." Silence stretched between us. Heavy, uncomfortable but not hostile. "I don't hate you," he said finally. My chest tightened. "I know." "No," he snapped, then softened immediately. "I mean, I hate that people assume shit about me." And I thought he stopped, rubbing the back of his neck. "I thought if I hated gays first, no one would look too close." I didn't say anything. I just listened. "My dad was strict," Jack continued. "Real big on men don't do this. Men don't feel that." He scoffed quietly. Funny thing is, he was wrong about a lot. Jack finally looked at me. Really looked at me. "You don't make me uncomfortable," he said. "That's the problem." The words landed between us, raw and exposed. My heart was pounding, but I kept my voice steady. "Why is that a problem?" He swallowed. "Because you should." And then he stood up and went to his room, leaving me alone with the echo of his confession and the terrifying realization that whatever this was, it was already out of control. Things escalated after that. Jack started defending me without realizing it. When his buddy Mark came over and made some dumb joke about rainbow parades, Jack shut him down fast. "Knock it off," he said. "That shit's old." I stared at him from the kitchen, stunned. He avoided my eyes for the rest of the night, brushing past me in the hallway when there was plenty of space, his hand lingering when he passed me a beer. I told myself he was confused, curious, that it would pass. Didn't. The night everything changed was quiet. No alcohol, no distractions. The power went out during a storm, plunging the apartment into darkness. We lit candles and sat in the living room, the rain pounding against the windows. Jack leaned back on the couch, arms crossed. "You ever scared you're gonna end up alone?" I laughed softly. "All the time." He nodded. "Yeah, me too." Another pause. "Ryan," he said, voice low, "can I ask you something without you making it a thing?" I met his eyes. "I won't make it a thing." "What does it feel like?" he asked slowly. "When you look at someone and know they see you?" The room felt smaller. I swallowed. "It feels like relief." Jack's breathing changed. Shallow. Uneven. "Damn," he muttered. He stood abruptly, pacing once, then stopping right in front of me. "I don't hate gays," he said. "I hate that you make me feel like this." My voice shook. "Like what?" "Like I don't get to choose." Silence. Then, very carefully, I said, "You still get to choose, Jack." He looked at me like that was the scariest thing I could have said. Slowly, deliberately, he reached out, then hesitated, his hand hovering inches from my arm. Then he touched me. Not desperate, not rough, intentional. His hand wrapped around my wrist, grounding, steady. He searched my face one last time, like he was bracing for impact. Then he leaned down and kissed me. And nothing about it felt like hate. It didn't feel like fireworks or some dramatic movie moment where the world tilts on its axis. Felt quiet, heavy, like something that had been waiting a long time finally stopped pretending it wasn't there. Jack pulled back first. "Say something," he muttered. I swallowed. "Hi." That actually made him huff. "This is a mistake," he said, immediately contradicting himself by turning back. "I mean, damn, I don't know. I've never—" He stopped, jaw tight. "I don't do this." I stayed where I was. Didn't chase him. Didn't reach for him. "I know," I said softly. "That's why I didn't stop you." That got his attention. Jack stared at me like he was trying to decide whether to be angry or relieved. "You're way too calm about this," he said. I shrugged. "I've been on the other side of confusion before. I know what it looks like." That landed harder than I expected. He sank onto the couch, elbows on his knees, staring at the floor. "I don't hate you," he said again, like he needed to repeat it until it stuck. "I don't hate guys like you. I just— Every time I thought about it being me, it felt like everything would fall apart." I sat down next to him, leaving space. "Did it?" I asked. Jack shook his head slowly. "No." Silence filled the room, broken only by the rain tapping against the windows. "I don't know what this makes me," he admitted. I looked at him, really looked at him. "It makes you human." He scoffed quietly. "You make it sound easy." "It's not," I said. "But it gets less scary if you stop fighting it alone." He turned his head, eyes searching my face. "You're not trying to turn me into something, are you?" The question hurt more than I expected. "No," I said, steady. "I'm not trying to make you anything. I just see you." Jack's throat bobbed. "Damn," he whispered. When the power came back on, neither of us moved. Eventually, Jack stood up. "We should sleep." "Yeah," I agreed. At his door, he paused. "Ryan." "Yeah." He hesitated. "Don't make this weird tomorrow." I gave a small smile. "Only if you don't." Tomorrow was weird anyway, but not in the way I expected. Jack avoided my eyes all morning, then overcorrected by asking if I wanted coffee. He hovered, then retreated. Said my name like he was testing how it felt in his mouth. The tension wasn't gone. It had just changed shape. He started opening up in pieces, talking about his dad, about the way he'd learned early that softness wasn't safe, that wanting anything outside the rules meant punishment. "You were an exception," he admitted one night, before I even knew it. That scared me, because exceptions are fragile things. The real breaking point came when his friends came over again. Mark, loud as ever, cracking jokes, beer in hand. Someone made a comment, something stupid, careless. "So Jack," Mark smirked, "you still living with the fairy?" The room went dead quiet. My chest tightened. I didn't move, didn't speak. Jack stood up so fast his chair scraped loudly against the floor. "Get out," he said. Mark blinked. "What?" "You heard me." Jack's voice was calm, but there was something dangerous underneath it. "You don't talk about him like that. Ever." Mark laughed nervously. "Dude, relax." I said get out. They left soon after. Jack stood there, fists clenched, breathing hard. "I'm sorry," he said immediately, turning to me. "I should have shut that down sooner." I stared at him. "You didn't have to do that," I said quietly. "Yes," he replied. "I did." That was the moment I realized something had shifted permanently. I wasn't just the exception anymore. I was someone he chose. After that night, Jack stopped pretending. Not publicly. The tension lived in everything. In the way he waited for me to get home before eating dinner. In the way he knocked before entering my room, even when the door was open. In the way he watched me when he thought I wasn't looking, like he was memorizing something he might lose. One night, about a week after the incident with Mark, I finally said it. "You're punishing yourself. You're protecting the version of yourself that doesn't exist anymore." That hit. He dried his hands slowly, deliberately, then turned to face me. "You think this is easy for me?" he asked quietly. "Every instinct I have tells me this ends badly. That I wake up one day and everything I thought I knew about myself is gone. I stepped closer. And what if what you thought you knew was wrong? Jack laughed bitterly. You don't get it. I do, I said. I lost people when I came out. Friends. Family. I didn't get to ease into it. I just jumped and hoped the ground would still be there. And was it? He asked. I met his eyes. Eventually. He stared at me for a long time. The next morning, something in Jack shifted permanently. He didn't pull away. He didn't retreat. He made coffee, sat across from me, met my eyes. This isn't just an exception anymore, is it? He asked. No, I said softly. It's not. He nodded slowly. Okay. Just like that. Okay. It wasn't a declaration. It wasn't a coming out moment. But it was acceptance. The real test came weeks later when his dad called. I heard Jack's voice through the wall, tight, controlled, then raised, then quiet in a way that meant danger. When he came out, his face was pale. He's coming to visit, Jack said. This weekend. My stomach dropped. Does he know about us? Jack looked at me. No, but he's going to. Fear flashed through me. But Jack reached for my hand. Steady. I won't hide you, he said. I won't let him disrespect you. I squeezed his fingers. You don't have to do this for me. Yes, he said firmly. I do. That weekend was hell. His dad was exactly what I expected. Sharp-eyed, judgmental, dismissive. He didn't say anything outright at first. Until dinner. So, his dad said, cutting into his steak, you and your roommate seem awfully close. Jack didn't hesitate. I'm gay, he said. Or bi. Or whatever label makes you comfortable. And Ryan's my partner. The silence was brutal. His dad laughed once. That's not funny. Jack didn't flinch. I'm not joking. What followed wasn't pretty. Raised voices. Old wounds. Threats of disapproval. But Jack didn't back down. Not once. When his dad finally left, slamming the door behind him, Jack just stood there, shaking. I stepped forward, wrapping my arms around him. He broke. Not loudly, not dramatically, just leaned into me and breathed like he'd survived something huge. I hated gays, he whispered, because I hated myself for wanting this. I held him tighter. And now? I asked. He kissed my temple. Now I don't. After Jack's dad left, the apartment felt different. Not quieter, heavier. Like the walls had absorbed everything that was said and were now waiting to see what came next. Jack didn't talk much that night. He showered longer than usual, then sat on the edge of his bed, elbows on his knees, staring at nothing. I stayed with him close enough to touch, not forcing anything. Finally, he spoke. I always thought if he knew, Jack said slowly, that would be it. Like the floor would drop out from under me. I reached for his hand. Did it? He shook his head. No, it just hurt. That honesty felt bigger than any dramatic speech. Don't let me turn into him, he murmured. You won't, I said. You already didn't. The next few weeks were quieter, gentler. Jack started introducing me differently. This is Ryan. Turned into, this is Ryan, he's with me. Not loudly, not defensively, just fact. Some people reacted weirdly, some surprised, some uncomfortable. Jack didn't flinch. He didn't overcorrect or apologize. He just stood there, shoulders squared, like he'd finally figured out where he belonged. I raised an eyebrow. You okay? He nodded slowly. Yeah. Then softer. Yeah, I am. I won't pretend it was perfect after that. Jack still had moments, hesitations, old reflexes that crept in when someone stared too long or made an offhand comment. But he didn't turn them into walls anymore. He talked. He asked questions. You know what's messed up? He said. What? I spent so long hating gay people because I thought they were everything I wasn't allowed to be. He shook his head. Turns out you're just people.